Now, as it was with the original Pixel 4a, Google has been a little bit of a prick tease with the new Pixel 4a 5G, which actually isn't landing in the UK until November, a full month after the Pixel 5 flagship phone. And at £500, it's also considerably more expensive than the original Pixel 4a, not to mention other 5G mid-range rivals like the OnePlus Nord, the Xiaomi Mi 10T, and of course the Realme X50 5G. But by the same token, it is also 100 bob less than the Pixel 5 flagship phone, despite packing very similar specs. Now, my full review will be coming soon, but for now, let's whip the Google Pixel 4a 5G out of its box, take you on a full-on tour of the hardware and the software. And for more on the latest greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So there is the Pixel 4a 5G. Just put that a little mofo aside for a second. Check out what else you get in here. So we have quick start guide and pokey pin device to get your SIM in there. Got a sexy bit of plug action, USB cable naturally, and last up a handy wee adapter, USB Type A to Type C to actually transfer data. Now, unlike the Pixel 5 flagship smartphone, the Pixel 4a 5G is only available in this just black finish. So there's no greeny, slightly sage option available here. And that is a shame because I've still got very fond memories of that gorgeous blue version of the original Pixel smartphone. Absolutely loved that thing. So hopefully it'll come out in more vibrant hues at some point. And while aesthetically the Pixel 4a 5G looks very similar to the Pixel 5 flagship phone, what you actually get here is a polycarbonate body instead. So it's made of plastic rather than aluminium. You can definitely feel the difference between the Pixel 4a 5G and the flagship smartphone. The texture is very different indeed. You don't get so much the cardboardy feel, although it definitely has that soft touch texture to it still. So the Pixel 4a 5G certainly feels comfortable to grip, helped along by the rounded corners and the fact that it is quite a compact device at 6.2 inches as well. Certainly a lot smaller than the 6.7 or 6.8 inch behemoths I've been reviewing recently. Although at 6.2 inches it is also the biggest of the 2020 Pixel phones so far. Of course, it is a shame that you get a plastic chassis on a £500 smartphone. You'd expect slightly more premium materials at this price point, but hey ho, just gotta hope it doesn't scratch up too easily. As well as that plastic backing, you also only get Gorilla Glass 3 covering the display, but hopefully that should help prevent scratches and nicks over time. And sadly, there's no IP rating for water resistance here. There's not really that many exciting design features to point out. You do have a white power button, which stands out quite cleanly against the black chassis, although the black volume rocker does blend in rather nicely. And as you can see there, the actual camera chassis only juts out ever so slightly from the back of the phone. And like the other Pixel smartphones, you also have a rear-mounted physical fingerprint sensor for easy access. As for the SIM tray, well, it's just a single SIM setup here on the Pixel 4a 5G. You don't get a dual physical SIM setup at least, but what you can do is you can register an eSIM on the Pixel 4a 5G if you want to do some international travel, things like that. And unfortunately, there's no room for a micro SD memory card as usual. But at least you do get 128 gigs of storage with the Pixel 4a 5G, so hopefully that'll do you a good long while. And of course, you've got that OneDrive storage too. Alright, is the Pixel 4a 5G all set up, good to go, and as you would expect from a Google smartphone, it is run the latest version of Android, Android 11, so it's basically the same software experience that you're going to get from the Pixel 5 flagship. Stock Android fans will notice that there's not really a huge amount of difference in terms of the general aesthetics, and quite a lot of the features do look very similar as well. But there are a few little differences in there. So for instance, the power menu now gives you fast access to your Google Home Smart Kit. That's along with the fast Google Pay access, of course. Because your customization options are rather limited compared with some launches. You can dive into home settings and change a couple of little bits. So for instance, change the at a glance widget. And if you dive on into the styles and wallpaper section as well, you got loads of great little themes to play around with there. You can change up the look and feel of your icons, the color theme and all that. You can definitely get all kinds of crazy shapes on the go in Android 11, all kinds of tastes catered for. As usual, one-handed use is nice and straightforward on the Pixel 4a 5G as well. You can drag down that notifications bar from anywhere on screen. And of course, because it's a 6.2 inch, it's reasonably easy to fondle with one mitt anyway. And you can also drag down that notifications bar using that rear-mounted fingerprint sensor as well. Although I have already knocked it by accident a couple of times, so I'll sort of see if I end up knocking that off out of frustration. And speaking of that rear-mounted fingerprint sensor as well, seems to do the job. It's not the most responsive around, not super nippy, but you know, you're not hanging around. And so far, touch wood, it doesn't seem to have balked up. Tap, and you're in. Now that 6.2 inch display is once again an OLED panel, just like the standard Pixel 4a, and as you can see they're nice and crisp as well with its full HD plus resolution, helped along by the fact that it's a smaller stature than most smartphones. You do have a dinky wee camera orifice tucked away in the corner there, which does intrude slightly on the action, as you can see there, when you go full screen, but it's not exactly super offensive. It is quite tiny. And of course, because this is an OLED, and as usual from Google, you get gorgeous, sharp contrast, nice deep blacks, so everything looks absolutely stunning when you're enjoying a nice bit of moody Marvel action. And those colors really pop when you're watching a nice bit of animation as well. And it's fully customizable, of course, via the display settings. So if you prefer your more vivid hues, that's fine. If you want more natural visuals, job done. But sadly, unlike a lot of smartphones around the £500 price point, and even a lot lower these days, it is just a 60Hz refresh rate here on the Pixel 4a 5G. There's no 90Hz silky smooth gorgeousness. And you know what? The animations are still nice and smooth as well, but it's not quite the same. And that HDR10 support means you can view supported HDR content on the likes of Netflix from launch as well. And as with the Pixel 5 flagship phone, you do have a stereo speaker output here on the Pixel 4a 5G. Let's just bump the volume right the way up. Crazy with 6.5, 6.7, 6.8 inch smartphones. It's really good to have something that actually fits in the hand. And I've got to say, I'm actually more impressed with the stereo speaker output here on the Pixel 4a 5G than I am on the Pixel 5 flagship phone. And that's probably because it's a bigger phones have actually got more space to work with this upper speaker, which definitely does not sound anywhere near as tinny as it did on that 5. Overall, decent performance, and of course the other big advantage of the Pixel 4a 5G over that more expensive flagship is the fact that you actually get a headphone jack, huzzah. You got full Bluetooth support as well, of course, so if you dive on into the audio settings, you won't find anything particularly exciting like Dolby Atmos support or anything like that, but you got the usual now playing, so you can work out whatever cracking tune is playing out on over the radio. And you've got the excellent live caption feature as well, which can automatically translate any speech into text and put it there on the screen like subtitles. It's not 100% accurate, but it is definitely good for anyone hard of hearing. Now, one area where the Pixel 4a 5G does not differ at all from the Pixel 5 flagship phone is the performance. They both rock Qualcomm's Snapdragon 765G chipset. Although here on the Pixel 4a 5G, it is backed by 6 gigs of RAM. And yeah, it is possible to get the better Snapdragon 865 at this sort of price point, especially with handsets from the likes of Xiaomi or Realme. But you know what? That Snapdragon 765G will absolutely blaze through anything you throw its way. You can multitask with apps, no problem. You can play Call of Duty, PubG on top detail levels without an issue. Strong benchmark scores, as you can see there. And touch wood, I haven't had any issues with overheating or anything like that, even when gaming for a good couple of hours using that platform. And of course, with that 765G, you also get the added bonus of the built-in 5G modem, so you don't need to slap an extra one on the side, unlike with the 865. So yes, you do have full 5G support here in the Pixel 4a 5G, as the name kind of hints quite heavily at, but sadly there is no Wi-Fi 6 support. And touch wood, you shouldn't have any issues with battery life here on the Pixel 4a 5G. I will of course be fully testing it out for my in-depth review, but you've got a 3885 milliamp cell stuffed away in there. You've got the usual battery saver modes and all that jazz tucked away in there, but fingers fricking crossed you won't even need to go near all that, because hopefully it'll see you through a full day. And the Pixel 4a 5G also has your 18-watt fast charging support, but there's no wireless charging unlike the flagship, so obviously no reverse wireless charging either. And last up, let's finish with the real highlight of the Google Pixel 4a 5G, or what I'm hoping is a highlight, because one of the best bits of any Google phone is usually the camera tech. And as always, that Google camera app is nice and streamlined, nice and straightforward to use. You will notice now that you've got this little level jobby that pops up on screen by default. That should be particularly handy if you've had a skinful and you want to make sure you don't get a wonky shot. No worries if you're not a fan though, because you can pull out the settings and dive on in here, and as you'll see, you've got framing hints. Just knock that off and see there, your level has buggered off. And of course, via the quick settings, you've got access to the usual, the timer, the flash, the motion photo. And the Pixel 4a 5G's camera once again seems nice and nippy to use, and you can get your individual brightness on the go, so you can boost up your subject's brightness as well as the overall brightness. And here on the Pixel 4a 5G, you do get the same 12.2 megapixel dual pixel sensor as the Pixel 5 flagship phone. Now I've said pixel too many times and it's lost all meaning. But what that means is nice, accurate, realistic looking colors, just nice crisp detail as well, even though, you know, it's not a 64 megapixel or a 108 megapixel sensor. Those photos should definitely still look great even when blown right up. And of course, you've got built-in optical image stabilization as well, again to help keep your images nice and crisp even if you've been hitting that lockdown whiskey a bit too hard. And no worries if you find you can't quite fit everything into frame, because the Pixel 4a 5G does actually sport a 16 megapixel ultra wide angle lens just like the Pixel 5 flagship phone. And touch wood, looks like the color reproduction and everything is very, very similar. So hopefully you're not sacrificing picture quality in order to get that pulled out view. And I love the way that Google doesn't overload its camera app with crappy bonus features that you're probably not going to use. It's all good stuff on here, like a portrait mode for adding a bokeh style background effect, again with that dual brightness control, and night sight. Night sight. Oh, god damn it. You know what I mean, the low light jobby. And it basically just captures lots of photos at different exposure levels and then sticks them all together for a nice, bright, gorgeous affair. And of course, it doesn't really seem to make much difference right now. That's because I'm not in near pitch blackness, but if I was, you'd still be getting those really nice looking colors shining through. And if you do want a bit of time lapse or slow motion, whatever, that stuff is on there as well. And then for shooting your video, you can capture your home movies in full HD resolution or a bit of 4K, and you can shoot 4K at 30 or 60 FPS just like the full HD. And then last up, let's flip around to that 8 megapixel front facing camera, which should be absolutely fine for your selfie needs. Again, it's quite low megapixel resolution compared with a lot of other smartphones which offer like 16, 32 megapixel selfies. But I found that again, thanks to Google Software Smarts, your selfies tend to look rather sharp and detailed, a bit too much detail if you ask me. And you got full access to the portrait mode and everything in this, and I think you can use night sight as well. Yes, you can indeed with the selfies. So great news if you want to shoot yourself in the nightclub, hanging out with your homies, or not so much anymore because of course that's not really allowed. If you do still do that, definitely don't post photos on Instagram. And there you have it, that's my whistle stop tour of the Pixel 4a 5G ahead of my in-depth review, hopefully coming soon, although I do have a lot of phones stacked up for review. And if you can't quite stretch that Pixel 5 flagship, you know, you get the same camera tech, get very similar performance, and you've actually got a couple of bonus advantages like that headphone jack and a slightly better stereo speaker performance. So are you tempted by the Pixel 4a 5G? It'd be great to hear your thoughts down below, and stay tuned for my full in-depth Pixel 4a versus 4a 5G versus 5 comparison, which is coming very soon as well. Now have a good one everyone, cheers, love you!